Let me address a little bit about testing. Are you all kind of curious about testing? Okay, good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all the same sheet of paper that I give my students, having to do the testing on the various campuses. I think this will help you all a little bit to understand testing better, understand the student's responsibility. Whoop. Because we do not want to leave you out there in the lurch. Take one while you got it. Thank you. And my back row sitters.
I have to see if I can get the
Okay. Now, if this totally confuses you, don't worry. Sometimes I get confused too. But the important thing is to understand that testing on the north and the main campus is exactly the same. It's run exactly the same. You have already received, have a number of you received, I know this group, already accommodations for students who may be in your classes? Okay, a number of them do receive testing accommodations. Students with hearing impairment, for the most part, do not receive testing accommodations. Most students with visual impairments will receive testing accommodations because they need somebody to read for them or that they need it to be read to them from the reading software. On the main and the north campuses, students are supposed to contact you and have some sort of discussion with you about testing. Because when we do accommodations for students, not everybody says, I'm going to use that accommodation. We give it to them, and they ignore us. I've asked all of my students to stop and talk with you and or send you an email that says, I'm John Smith. I intend to use my accommodation for testing. We want them to be consistent. So if they start using that accommodation, we'd like them to use it the whole semester. It's easier on us. It's easier on you. All they have to do is bring you a green and yellow form. Do you remember those forms that Regina showed you yesterday? This is, again, north and main campuses. The green form is for you. It's for you to attach to the test to send back to our office. The yellow form is for the student to bring back to us to schedule their test. This is the important thing to remember. You're the commander of the testing. We do not tell that student what day to test on, nor will we allow them to change the day of the test without your permission. So if that test is supposed to be Tuesday the 15th, that student will bring in a yellow form and it says Tuesday the 15th. They can talk themselves blue in the face with Erica and Penny and Lydia up on North, trying to say, oh, but I want to take it on the 16th. They won't get away with it without your permission. They must take the test sometime that day. Normally, they take it the exact same time the class is. However, you got to recognize that sometimes our students stack their classes. They have one at 9 o'clock, one at 10 o'clock, one at 11 o'clock, because that's the way a lot of them did it in high school. You know, they're so used to doing that. They don't realize it's good to put a little bit of time in between a class. If they have not given any time between those classes, we do not let them skip any part of the next class. So if a student comes to you and says, oh, I'm late for class because I was taking a math test at DSS, that's probably very unlikely, and I would be on the phone to Penny or Erica immediately because we don't let them skip another class. They need to take that test either coming in a little bit early, or if your class is at 9 o'clock in the morning and they take it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they can take it then, but it has to be the same day. The tests are returned to you immediately. There are drop boxes in your different offices. Some instructors prefer just to email the test. It's so much easier just to email the test to Penny, and she will print it and give it to the student. And it can include all of your instructions with it, you know, whether the students can use a calculator, what kind of calculator can they use? Do they need to have it in pencil? Can they write on the test? Let's see, think of some other things. How long the test is, that's a big one. How long is the test for your class? not for the student. So on that yellow sheet of paper or any communications with Penny or Lydia, you need to put how much time the class is given for the test. We will figure out the extended time, so you don't have to worry about that. And those students do stick to that time. We don't give them anything extra. If they are late for that test, too bad. It's just exactly like you would handle it in your class. That student comes in late, do you all give them extra time to finish that test? No, we don't either. So they're held to the exact same standards as any other student on campus when it comes to testing. Have I answered everything about Maine?
Well, I've been teaching a couple of years here. What is the qualification for claiming disability? In other words, I've had students that say, oh, I learn at a slower rate, I need 3 times as much time. Can anybody just claim this and walk in and say, oh, I need more time?
Oh, no. That's a great question, though, and maybe you weren't here for Regina's talk yesterday. I don't know if you were or not. Each and every student must provide us with documentation showing how their disability affects their ability to learn. So a student cannot walk in the door and say, oh, I had an IEP in high school. Are y'all familiar with IEPs, an individual education plan? IEP does not count in college. We can, by law, give them like a semester to say, get your documentation together. It's really obvious you had testing extensions in high school. However, we need to have that psychological. We need to have that documentation from your physician, psychiatrist, neuropsychiatrist. We've got to have the documentation or they don't get it. So you're never going to get anybody who walks in the door. We turn a lot of people away. It may look like we have a lot of students who get this accommodation, but in reality there's not that many, and a lot of students really don't use it. They just decide either, I don't need that accommodation, I think I'll take the D or the C, or they're too proud to use it. But it's, maybe you might have 2 or 3 students per class. Sometimes you won't have anybody in your class. Yeah.
One other question.
Sure.
Last semester I had an online student with a disability.
Great.
Now, the nature of online classes, I read your clause here that they automatically do not get test extensions. Blackboard and our tools are not set up to provide one student special things. An online course has some prerequisites.
Right.
You've got a week, the way I set mine up, they have a week to complete the assignment. And every week there's a quiz to prove their attendance.
Correct.
So the quizzes are all set up, they're all on timers, they're all a standard time frame. One student that wants a special testing accommodation requires you to do an awful lot of work. You've got to basically wait till everybody else completes everything and then go back in for that student and change the timer for the quizzes.
There's another way to do that.
How is that?
This is the way, and again, I was going to get to online testing in
Oh,
a
I'm
couple
sorry.
minutes, but that's okay. No, we can jump ahead. That's fine. Online testing is unique for students. But you also get notification if a student has gone over that time. Am I correct? Okay. So we ask the students again to talk with their online instructors via email. I'm John Smith. I will be using my extended time. This is what I tell my students to do to take some of the pressure off of you. Just a minute, please. I expect them to discuss it with you ahead of time. They have to keep a kitchen timer. So if you've given 50 minutes for that test, and they get 75 minutes to do the test, which is time and a half, okay? I expect them to set a kitchen timer, watch their watch, whatever they want to do, let that time go by. But I also tell them 5 minutes before that time is up, you better be starting to send that exam back to you, the finished exam, via Blackboard or however you're doing the test. So that is another way to get around that resetting the time, and that's worked really well for my students this past year because they have to take the responsibility for it. And isn't that really what we're teaching most of these students, is how to accept responsibility? Can't always be done for them. Okay.
I was just going to mention there is a way in Blackboard to do a separate testing for the individual student at the same time as the others. I had to get IT to walk me through it because I'm really stupid with computers, but they actually log in under separate names, so basically you copy the test over, and then you give them a longer time window. IT is really patient because they put up with me, so call them and they can.
But hers is the easiest way, is let them
Yeah.
go over the time limit, when you go and open up to see their test, it tells them when they stop and how much time they took. Tell them they have a special time, regulate their own time.
Exactly.
And then just go check your DSS students.
Right.
The problem I'm having is I thought Blackboard cuts them off after the 1 hour.
Yeah.
So I probably gotta change the
Just
way-
check that one with the IT
Is it
folks.
optional? Allow them to go over.
The test can either close when time runs out, or you can leave it open and they just roll over the time.
That's what I'll do. That's a lot easier.
Excellent. Okay.
Everything is based upon the options that you set on Blackboard.
Mhm.
You can do it either way. If they, you know, they have, you get DSS, it's in your email, you know exactly how much time they have. You don't have to change anything that you have set up for your online class. You can run it the same way, you can take it the exact same way everybody else does. It's all based on your settings on Blackboard. All you have to do is look at your email, because DSS sends your email every semester. They tell you how long people have. All you have to do is bounce that and you're good to go. It's not really any more extra work.
Good, good. And my husband's a professor and department head at NC State. And one of the interesting things they found at NC State, well, his department has, is the number of students who like to use their phones during an exam. But they've been able to go back and find out every single student who's been on, because it's registered on their website who's been using and who's been on it. So he found 3 students in one class who really didn't have any excuse for why they were at the website during the exam. It's just kind of an interesting way technology is helping you as the instructor in terms of cheating and the integrity of your tests.
A question back to written tests.
You might talk a little bit louder so they can hear.
Written tests.
Okay.
One of the classes I teach, we have a quiz every week.
Okay?
Can I provide your department with all the quizzes and the dates at the beginning of the semester?
You sure can. You sure can. And be sure to talk with the student ahead of time and say, is this how you want me to do our test? You've got a student who's visually impaired. I'm pretty sure Taylor is going to request her tests to be, or quizzes to be in our office. Because quizzes come under that category as well.
So with this particular class, I give the test at 8 o'clock. The class has until 8:15 to complete it. As soon as lecture is over at 9, we go right into the kitchen.
Right.
So she would have to schedule to take her test after.
She could take it after, yeah, after, she would enter your class then at 8:15.
Okay.
And she could enter the class at 8:15 so she doesn't disrupt anybody else from taking it. And maybe your class is done at 11. Taylor can come back and take the quiz with us at 11 o'clock.
But she could also take it at 8.
But she's given 4
But she'd be given extended time, so it would. Yeah, it's kind of a dance we do because we want to give the student that extended time, but yet we want to make sure that student is back in your room to get all the words of wisdom that you need to impart for that day. So we don't want them to take away from the learning experience at all. We will work it out. I do not handle the testing. Penny and Erica do at our office, and they are great working with you all. So they will work with you whatever way that you need to get that test done for the student and get it back to you on time. Any more questions about the testing online? Boy, we covered a lot. Western Campus, Health Sciences Campus, and actually Northern is going in this direction for those here in Northern. We are teaming up with distance testing services. Right now, that is the way it is on Western, and we're getting ready to put it in place at Health Sciences. The nursing staff is thrilled. They're more than excited. How does distance testing work? For students who do not need any other accommodations beside extended time in a quiet setting, the student will work with the distance testing people, and so will you. They're located on Western Campus in room 265. Great folks. You're going to be able to get your tests to them. They schedule it. It's all done by email. They will let you know when you will let them know when your testing is for that semester, what days it is. They send out the reminders. They send out the reminders to the student, and it's all written procedures for Western on the back of this sheet. Some of our students who are on the autism spectrum disorder really have a difficult time in a testing situation. Students with visual impairments have a difficult time in a testing situation staying in the room. And we want to make it fair for all of your students. So I will go over and proctor them on the Western campus, or I will have one of our proctors go in and set up a separate room for testing for them, because we want it to be fair for the other students in your room. We don't want them, some of them have a tendency to have tics or noises, get very, very anxious. I'm sure you've seen a student who's really driven by anxiety or suffering from anxiety, and it's not good to have that student in the class with everybody else. So we will certainly remove that student and give that student an opportunity to test quietly on their own. But as I said, Western Campus is already well established. Room 265, I'd certainly go by and stop and see those people.
Yeah, it works out really well. Only thing I had the first time I ever tried it was I was on the main campus, they had the seats. So I was trying to take them the seats, they were like, you need to make sure you send the email back, not the sheet.
Right.
'Cause
It's
the
just a
same
different
thing.
process.
Yes, it's a different process.
So just remember, North and Main right now are exactly the same. Western has got this wonderful system of working with distance testing. Makes your life a whole lot easier working with those folks over there. That's coming into place on health sciences. Our health sciences campus now has their own DSS coordinator. She's in place there 4 days a week. So it's really getting very nice. And Northern, I think, is going to be going in the direction of the distance testing as well. So there won't be any more of those yellow and green sheets of paper. It's just a matter of them getting that room set up and getting things moved around. Yes, Jonathan?
I haven't personally had problems with this, but I have former colleagues who have. I teach public speaking and other things. But students who have either extreme anxiety issues, I mean beyond the normal speech
Yeah.
anxiety, but actual medical conditions. And also, I have had students who have speech impediments.
Right.
My approach has just been to work with them individually.
Yeah.
And I've not had problems with that, but like I say, I have heard of folks who don't know what to do when they really have a student who cannot give a speech 4 times during a semester.
I try to move my students, and I know other coordinators do, away from that public speaking course. You know, most of the students have to take a communications
Yeah.
course of one sort or another with 1 or 2 talks within that course.
Even our intro to comm class now
Has one.
3 speeches. in it.
Yeah. There are a couple different ways to do that, and again, it's driven by the civil rights attorneys, the attorneys who watch the Americans with Disability Act, trying to make things fair for students. I've seen it done a couple different ways. Number one, have the student come to your office, do the talk just like they would. For some reason, that interaction in the class just really freaks a few students out. Not all of us like to get up and talk in public. So the other way that it seems to work as well and is perfectly okay is if a student gets together, maybe 3 or 4 family members, sits them in and videotapes it. Videotapes the talk. They have to give it in front of people. Then that can work as a grade as well. Is that kind of workable for you? Yeah, we will help you work with that student. Sometimes it's a matter of me sitting down with the student and having the student do it with me ahead of time, and then they feel a little bit more comfortable. But generally, we try to keep them away from that large public speaking class.